Am I the a-hole for leaving my husband after what he did? My 30F husband, 35M, has been acting increasingly cruel since his dad died, and last night something happened that I can't get past. Am I insane? My 30F husband, 35M, has been acting really erratic this entire year. For context, we've been married 3 years. His father passed away at the beginning of the year. We stayed with his mom for about a month and a half to help her with everything that needed to be done and to support her emotionally. After we finally came back home, my husband started acting different. At first, it was mostly these aggressive, cruel jokes. For example, I love watching the birds in our backyard, and sometimes I whistle at them to get them to come closer. I would sit out on our back porch during the quiet morning hours, holding a warm mug of coffee, just enjoying the quiet before starting my day. It was my little ritual to decompress after spending 6 heavy weeks managing funeral arrangements and grief at his mother's house. One morning, a few sparrows landed near the feeder on the fence. I pursed my lips and whistled a soft note. I didn't hear him walk up behind me. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, looked down at me with complete coldness, and said, "Stop whistling at them. They're going to want to horizontal tango you." I froze, holding my cup, waiting for him to smile or laugh to show he was kidding, but his face remained completely flat and bitter. Another time I was organizing our pantry. It was a normal afternoon, and I was clearing off shelves, sorting canned goods, and putting fresh groceries away. I had bought a couple of cucumbers to make a salad for dinner and put them on the counter while I wiped down the drawers. He walked into the kitchen to grab a glass of water, saw some cucumbers I had bought, and said, "Why do you buy cucumbers? To stick them inside yourself? To pleasure yourself?" My stomach dropped into a knot. I turned around and asked him why he would say something so disgusting, but he just took a sip of water, shrugged, and walked away like it was nothing, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen feeling degraded. If we're out somewhere and another woman compliments my hair or my outfit, he'll spend the rest of the day calling her my girlfriend and making comments about how apparently so many women want to horizontal tango me. We went to a retail store recently, and a polite woman in the aisle complimented my jacket. It was a brief 5-second interaction. As soon as we reached the parking lot, his tone turned venomous. He spent the entire drive home sarcastically asking if I wanted her phone number and making relentless remarks about how women were constantly hitting on me and wanting to horizontal tango me. There have been so many comments like this, day after day, chipping away at my peace. I've suggested therapy because it feels like he's taking all of his anger out on me. I sat him down in our living room and gently explained that grief is heavy and that professional support might help us navigate this loss together. He flatly refused. He says he doesn't need therapy because he knows he needs to change and can do it himself. But weeks passed and no effort was ever made. What makes it harder to understand is how different he is with his mom. He is constantly there for her. He listens to her, comforts her, lets her talk about everything she's feeling. Whenever she calls, his voice instantly turns soft, compassionate, and patient. He'll spend an hour on the phone reassuring her through her grief. Then he'll hang up the phone and become cold and mean with me almost immediately. I don't understand why he's so angry at me when I was right beside him through the entire funeral process. Last night things got much worse. He initiated horizontal tango. I didn't really want to say no because I know how upset he gets when I reject him. In the past, if I wasn't in the mood, he would immediately shut down, give me the silent treatment, or make sarcastic remarks. He'll also tell me that he feels unwanted, and then I end up feeling guilty. So we continued, but this time felt completely different from every other time we've had horizontal tango. He has always been affectionate and careful with me. Last night there was none of that. When I looked at him, all I could see in his face was anger, almost hatred. His movements were so rough that he was hurting me. I was bracing myself on the mattress, genuinely shocked by the physical hostility. I was actually scared to tell him that he was hurting me. Eventually, I pushed him off me and said, "I'm hurt." I specifically said it that way because I was afraid of sounding like I was blaming him or triggering an explosive argument. Then I started crying, overwhelmed by fear and emotional exhaustion. And while I was lying there crying, he grabbed my hand and put it on his Winnie because he wanted me to help him come. I can't really explain the disgust and anger I felt in that moment. I was literally crying in front of him, and that was what he was thinking about. I immediately pulled my hand away, shrinking back against the headboard. He laughed and said, "You escaped." I just kept crying as he went to take a shower and then went to sleep. He didn't comfort me. He didn't ask if I was okay. Nothing. I've never felt so disgusted or objectified by anyone before, let alone my husband. His comments and jokes had already been making me extremely uncomfortable, but after last night, I feel like something in me just broke. I don't know if there's any coming back from this. Right now, the thought of him touching me again, makes my skin crawl. Has anyone experienced something like this with a partner, especially after they experienced a major loss? Can grief actually explain this kind of personality change? Before he did make some jokes and comments, but never to this extreme level. I don't really know what I'm looking for. Perspective, advice, maybe just someone telling me what they would do in my position. Anything would help. Edit. I just want to thank each and every one of you that has messaged me, left a comment, and wished me well. Please know I'm safe. I will update calmly when I can, but don't be worried for me. I'm not with him anymore. Update. Hello, everyone. First, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your support and advice. I felt so much love and care that I can't explain how truly moved and grateful I am. Sorry if this is too long, but I also want to address some questions or comments this soon since I know many have been worried. Please don't be. I think my body has been feeling I was being graped for quite a while, but I did not want to use that word. I just couldn't get myself to believe the man that was supposed to love me and care for me would do something like that. I spent a long time finding other explanations for his behavior, especially after his dad died. I told myself that he was grieving, that he was angry, that maybe he needed help, or that there was something happening with him that I didn't understand. But he did cross that line, and looking back, he's been doing things that made me uncomfortable for much longer than I wanted to admit. For the entirety of our marriage, I have not been able to shower on my own. Not even once. Not even in winter, when I'd shiver waiting for my turn to get on the water. He said it was his love language, and that showering together made him feel connected. In reality, he expected horizontal tango activity from me every single time we got in the shower. Sometimes I would avoid showering altogether, because I didn't want to deal with it. Other times I would try to shower quickly and get out before he started trying to seduce me. He would laugh and make the same comment about me escaping as I grabbed my towel and left. At the time, I treated those situations as something I had to put up with rather than recognizing what they actually meant. I was his wife, so I kept convincing myself that maybe I was being too sensitive. Regarding the overtly horizontal tango jokes, it reminded me of an incident involving one of his friends, who is also 35M. I was used to this friend making a horizontal tango joke or two toward my husband whenever we hung out. It was weird, but I assumed that was simply their humor. One night, however, this friend sat beside my husband and wouldn't stop touching him while making increasingly extreme horizontal tango jokes directed at him. The comments were basically about wanting to be with my husband. It became so uncomfortable that another friend eventually stepped in and told him to stop, respect me, and remember that my husband and I were married. I spoke to my husband afterward because I felt humiliated. What bothered me was that he had done nothing while it was happening. Another man had to step in and point out that the behavior was inappropriate. My husband told me that his friend simply didn't understand boundaries. I asked why he seemed more concerned with explaining his friend's behavior than acknowledging how uncomfortable I had been, but he insisted that was all it was. The next morning, his mom called and asked me to ignore the friend because he was dumb and didn't know how to make jokes. I found that strange and told my husband not to get his mother involved in our problems. I also asked him whether he had ever been romantically or sexually involved with that friend. I wasn't asking because I wanted to judge him. I wanted to understand what was going on. He denied it. Eventually, after I refused to simply ignore the comments, my husband spoke to his friend and asked him to stop. Even then, the whole situation left me uncomfortable. Some of you also wondered if there was some sort of abuse or inappropriate behavior in his family. I cannot fully confirm anything, and I don't want to make accusations about things I have no proof of. But there are enough strange behaviors that I now understand why I felt there was something wrong for a long time. Those things were actually part of why I wanted to help him and stay with him longer. I felt that he was suffering somehow, and that maybe I could help him understand what had happened in his life and heal. Based on what I've heard, his mother refused to let him go to school until he was 8 because she wanted to keep him close to her. I also know for a fact that whenever I'm not around, she walks around the house naked, and whenever he is showering there, she finds excuses to enter. Her reasoning is that they aren't pervs who sexualize bodies. Ever since he was born, she removed locks from all the doors in the house, including the bathroom. Anytime I visited, I would have to barricade myself inside with a basket of dirty clothes because I wanted some privacy. I've seen many strange things over the years, but I was too blind to put them together until recently. She asks about our intimate life, and my husband tells her about it. I told him I was disgusted and uncomfortable with his mother knowing those details, and he called me a prude and said it was normal. I think that is a huge part of why I stopped wanting intimacy with him. I would constantly wonder whether he was going to tell his mom about something we had done afterward. There was no sense that anything between us was private. I've also noticed her acting very strangely toward one of her nephews. He's 11 now, and whenever she visited him or he visited her, he slept on her bed, despite my FIL telling her he was uncomfortable with that. She also called the nephew every night so they could chat through dinner, even though my FIL asked for some evenings without FaceTiming the kid so they could have dinner and talk alone. She would just laugh and ignore him. When the kid was 7, he had a stage where he would caress my upper legs. I would ask him not to do that and spoke to my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. He said the boy was just a kid and was neurodivergent, so he didn't understand boundaries. My concern was that he might do something similar outside the family and have someone react aggressively toward him, or worse, that an adult with bad intentions might encourage it. Thankfully, it stopped. But lately I keep wondering where he learned that was acceptable in the first place. I obviously can't prove anything, but a big part of why I was so careful about not having kids with my husband, apart from his behavior toward me, was that I never wanted that woman to have unrestricted access to any children of mine. There were also things about my husband himself that had bothered me for years. He spends hours in the bathroom. Literally sometimes 3 or 4 hours. I cannot confirm if he was watching porn or cheating, and I don't want to pretend I know something I can't prove. I just always found it strange, especially because I'm often asleep when he comes back, and then he would blame me if we didn't have the horizontal tango. We have also fought over inappropriate messages with friends. Once, while he was showing me a video, a message appeared from a woman telling him that she liked him very much. I asked who she was because I knew his female friends, and he said she was a friend who lived abroad. When I asked what was going on, he turned it around on me for being insecure. He said he felt bad because his love apparently wasn't helping me get past my insecurities. A year later, he asked if that woman could stay at our house because she was spending the holidays in the area and became very upset when I said no. Another friend sent him an overtly horizontal tango invitation. He told me that he had asked her not to do that because he was married. He had apparently made similar advances toward her when she was in a relationship himself. His excuse was that he hadn't been married at the time. He also makes a point of telling me whenever women are supposedly checking him out. According to him, this happens constantly whenever we go out. I don't really care, and sometimes I laugh because he thinks women getting very close to him is flirting when my first thought is usually that they might be trying to pick his pocket. A last thing before I explain what is going on now. The last time I tried to start being intimate was when I planned a romantic date. It had to be at home because he hated going out. It couldn't be too early because he got cranky, it couldn't be in the middle of the day because the sun was too strong, and it couldn't be at night because it was too dark to drive. So, I planned a romantic dinner at home. While I was taking the wine out, he became angry and accused me of only wanting the horizontal tango when I was drunk. As you can imagine, the date was cancelled. So, what happened? Yesterday, he acted like nothing had happened. He was actually very sweet, which was strange because lately he had been so angry afterward. I wasn't happy, but I was careful not to provoke a reaction while I figured out what I was going to do. That night, he asked me what was wrong, so I spoke with him. I told him how humiliated and objectified I felt. I explained that I had been crying in front of him and that I couldn't understand how his response had been to focus on himself instead of stopping and checking whether I was okay. He turned himself into the victim again. He claimed that reaching for my hand was his way of showing me that I was still desirable even though I was crying. He said he had been trying to help my confidence because he hadn't been able to finish before. That explanation made me even more disgusted. I asked why he had left me crying to take a shower and then gone to sleep without checking on me. He shrugged and said that he assumed I was upset and wanted to deal with it on my own. At that point, I stopped engaging in the argument. I knew where it was going. I would explain why something had hurt me, he would reinterpret what happened, and eventually we would be discussing whether I was allowed to feel hurt instead of what had actually happened. I just nodded until he stopped talking because I didn't have the energy for another endless argument. Then today he woke up and told me he needed to go to his mom's house indefinitely. He said he needed to be there for her, but also for himself. He said our house wasn't healthy for him anymore, and that leaving was the only way he could get better and heal. I just nodded and agreed. Even though I know that his mom's house is deeply toxic and unhealthy for him, I needed to think about myself for once. He left with his car, and I suddenly realized I had an opportunity to get out without having to confront him or tell him what I was planning. When he left, I couldn't stop crying, out of happiness. Somehow, the road seemed to open for me in a way that wasn't as dangerous. I packed some essentials, and I'm waiting to take a flight to be with my parents. I will not tell him anything, and I'm leaving before he regrets anything or tries to check on me. Once I'm there, I will talk to lawyers about the next steps for divorce. My friends and family have my back, and I feel very lucky to have so many people supporting me despite years of being isolated. I do not want to contact this man ever again if possible, and I still cannot believe he just left like that. I'm a bit shocked that I don't need many days of planning, of being scared, or of trying to figure out how to get out safely. And now that I mentioned a guardian angel, I started to cry because some of you mentioned if I had a brother or someone taller or stronger than my husband to ask for his help to come get me. My brother died when I was 14, and he was 20 in a very terrible accident. He was quite tall and strong and had a heart of gold. He was like a teddy bear. He would have moved the entire world to help me, and I think he did today. So thank you for the advice, wishes, prayers. Thank you all. Whenever there's any advances on what I hope a smooth divorce, I'll let you know. But again, thank you everyone that was worried for me, that gave me advice and resources. I deeply value all. And I will read all of the recommended books. I've been going to a therapist, but I may change for someone specialized in trauma and abuse as I go through the divorce and keep wrapping my head about everything that happened and that somehow I kept ignoring or thinking it wasn't a big deal. Thank you all for being so caring and helpful. You're right, I knew something was very wrong. I was already hesitating and thinking of getting out, but reading so many people confirming what I feared helped me more than you will ever know. I wish you all the very best as I move to this next chapter of my life with all of my loved ones. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.